Hello, I'm Malcolm Hazlitt. Not a lot of entertainers have a show written about them and performed by the State Theatre Company. So just who is the real Madame Josephine and what's so special about country arts? Find out with me as we share our time. Hello and welcome to Our Time. As you can see, I'm all alone at the drive-in once again because my mate in crime, Janice, is cruising around the Mediterranean somewhere, probably, I don't know where she's stopping off. I think it could be Turkey at the moment. Good luck is all I can say. And good luck in this episode because we're about to meet Steve Soffell, who is the CEO of Country Arts. And we're also going to meet Joseph Farrugia, who has had a show about his life as Madame Josephine, performed by the State Theatre Company. But first, here's Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Malcolm.
Welcome to Our Time.
Oh, thank you.
CEO of Country Arts, CEO is Chief Executive Officer. In your position as a Chief Executive Officer, do you ever get not to eat lunch at your desk?
All the time.
We were just talking about that, I must admit, because people don't really understand, I suppose, what a Chief Executive Officer of an arts organisation would do.
I work with a bunch of really good people, can I say, in a fantastic industry. So it's probably not your most average CEO role, can I say. We all sort of pitch in together and we're all committed to bringing the arts to life in country
Well, the arts
South
are like
Australia.
that, I suppose, because you do have to work together to make it happen.
That's exactly right.
When you're talking about bringing the arts to life in South Australia, it's not in the city of Adelaide as such. It's really everywhere else in the state.
That's exactly right. I think without Country Arts SA, all those things that we take for granted in metropolitan Adelaide or metropolitan Sydney, people in regional areas don't have that access, and that's our responsibility to make sure that we can somehow address that imbalance, if you like, of access to the arts.
Well, your responsibility is here in South Australia, but of course in every state there's an equivalent organisation.
Well, there is, but they don't cover quite as much as we do.
Aha! That's what we want, a bit of dirt. Okay, no, not really. Now, where are the theatres? The main theatres are 5 centres around the state?
That's right. I mean, and that is the main difference, that we run art centres, we like to call them, because they're more than performing arts theatres. They're located in Whyalla, the Middlebank Arts Centre, the Northern Festival Centre in
Sorry,
Port Pirie.
before you reel them all off, Middlebank, why was it called that?
I understand after the Middlebank Ranges, which is quite a prominent...
And quite appropriate.
Yeah.
Yes, and the others?
Well, the Chaffey Theatre, after the Chaffey brothers, of course, in the Riverland.
Just remind us who the Chaffey brothers are.
Well, I didn't know them personally, but I understand that they had a lot to do with irrigation, which made the Riverland what it is today.
Which put people there, so they needed a place of entertainment and places to come together, I guess.
That's right.
So actually a good thing that it was named after something that wasn't, for example, like the theatre down in Mount Gambier, which is named after...
Sir Robert Helpman. And yes, and we have one other, of course, after Keith Michell. The theatre at the Northern Festival Centre is named after Keith Michell. So they all have interesting
But there's not only those buildings that do all of the things they do, because there are theatres in them.
Yes.
There's a ballroom in one.
At Port Pirie at the Northern Festival Centre.
And rehearsal rooms and spaces that people can use.
That's right. There's a drama studio at the Chaffey Theatre, which the local high schools use on a regular basis as well. In Whyalla, we actually run the old TAFE auditorium, which abuts our building, and that's run as a cinema, a commercial cinema.
But it's not only those centres that have your attention, it's also really statewide in all sorts of venues.
That's right. Well, I guess there is the 5th theatre, which is the Hopgood Theatre in Noarlunga, which isn't exactly regional, but because that theatre was built at the same time as ours, we are professional theatre managers, TAFE aren't, and so there was some negotiation that happened, and we're running that as a very viable theatre at the moment. But
it's
certainly...
an excellent space, that's why.
It is.
Really an excellent...
It is. And And but throughout regional South Australia, we tour smaller performances to town halls. We tour visual arts experiences, which includes exhibitions to any number of library spaces, galleries. There's a network of about 25 regional galleries.
Right. But you're not scaling work down for that. You're actually giving the whole thing. It's not like you're doing half the show or half the exhibition. The shows that are travelling through might be tailored for the venues.
Absolutely,
but
yes.
You're not being lessened because they're not in the major centres, is what I mean.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean by that?
I
hope
do.
You know what I mean by that.
I do.
You know, it's interesting because being a performer and having travelled quite a bit to all sorts of spaces around the country, you realise that you, as the performers, want to give exactly the same show, whether it be in a tin shed out in the Nullarbor or whether it be in a beautifully appointed theatre.
Exactly. You've got to tailor the show to the venue, and you know, for instance, there might be a great smaller show that works well in the country hall. We might actually put on just on the stage. We'll have all the audience come up on the stage at any one of our 4 regional centres. So
the beauty is you never know what to expect.
You don't.
In a funny sort of way.
No.
So. Steve, I guess one of the most important stories at the moment for country arts is its anniversary. Is that a silver anniversary? 25?
I think it is.
You're doing a silver thing.
Well, we haven't
thought of that.
We haven't thought of that, but basically, look, Country Arts SA over the last 25 years has changed a lot, and particularly in the last couple of years, we've been predominantly a presenter of shows and exhibitions, etc. We've also been a facilitator, helping communities, artists, etc. do their own thing. But more and more we're becoming a producer in our own right. We've also, in our last strategic plan, made sure that we actually put artists at the centre of everything we do. And so 2018 is going to be a celebration of the arts and artists, both past and present, but more importantly for the future. Brilliant.
And how do you engage with the local people in the town? Do they have pride in these venues, that they are their venues?
Absolutely, they do. I think we focus on that a lot. We have reference groups around each of those 4 theatres, because the regional theatres, art centres, because we want to make sure that they're actually meeting the needs of those communities. But as you pointed out earlier, I mean, we program shows in there, but those art centres are used for a whole lot more. Very much by schools and community organisations. They're a hall for hire for commercial promoters coming through, etc. So they're a hive of activity. Over 200,000 people come through those 5 art centres each year.
And engaging with the community, for example, if I was living, say, in Whyalla and I came up with a good idea that I thought I could pitch to somebody like Country Arts to put into the venue that you may become the entrepreneur or the producer of, how would one go about that? How would we contact you to find out what to do?
Okay, well, obviously there's a lot of product out there, and we work with the national sector, I suppose, to try and make sure that when we program, we're getting the very best on offer.
But there are pitch sessions that people can
absolutely.
Because here in South Australia, there's the South Australian Presenters Association, and just recently we were all at that event and we saw a whole lot of local people pitching their shows. And there's a similar thing on a national basis now.
That's right. South Australia is probably the youngest showcase, if you like, state showcase. They've been going in Victoria, Queensland in particular, for a very long time. They're very big showcases over a number of days. But certainly it's a fantastic way, if you've got a show, to actually get it pitched at a showcase. And look, we at Country Arts SA also do another service for the whole national sector, if you like. We run a product called the National Touring Selector. So what we do is encourage producers to put their show up on that online platform.
Right.
And then presenters from around Australia can actually see that. And we work with the markets, the showcases, to actually, if you like, marry the producer and the presenter together such that we can find out the interest in any particular show, and hopefully out of that a tour will come about, whether it be just a small local tour or a national tour.
National tour.
Some of
but
those
anyway,
tours,
it's good to do the local tour first to find out how the show works as well.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit in well with the funding for tours, because it's we can actually get funding to tour interstate, but we can't get funding to tour our own show within the state. So
but it's a matter of just connecting to start with. So if you have a great idea and you think there is something that you could do with it, you obviously need to get it to a point. You can't just have a harebrained idea and wander off and say, you know, help us make this happen. You need to put something together that makes perfect sense, that you can pitch either at one of the pitch sessions, or as Steve was saying, go online and find out the information. Please do. Steve, this is Steve Soffell. He's the CEO of Country Arts in South Australia. Next year, 25 years of celebration of country arts being here in South Australia. For the rest of the country, you might like to come over for a holiday. You never know. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you, Malcolm. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be back with something very special. Madame Josephine's creator, Joseph. And welcome back to OurTime. Now, I'm delighted to present for you, I think that's the best word I can possibly use, Joseph Farrugia, who is an entertainer extraordinaire, but you rarely see your face looking like this, Joseph. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Malcolm. Nice to be here.
Because like Barry Humphries, you are probably more famous for your alter ego than you are for being you.
Correct.
Although Barry Humphries, I suppose, is quite famous for being him. But you've worked for the last however many years as Madame Josephine.
I have indeed, yes.
I'm telling you, you should know that.
I certainly do, and I certainly feel it. It's been, well, 40 years now.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes, being on stage as Madam, and very, very lucky to be employed and not really having to look for work, because creating a character creates work for yourself, and being employed throughout Australia, overseas, and then, of course, you know, not quite directing, but being there for the State Theatre Company as well.
Yes, well, we'll talk about that. But in a way, you're a household name here in South Australia, not to be confused with the hairdresser that wanted to use the same name. I'm just throwing that in so that people absolutely know you are the real Madame Josephine.
It was the reverse, actually. When I came to Adelaide, the hairdresser was already there, and hence there was a confusion created that wasn't so, because he wanted to not have me in town and being Madame Josephine, because it clashed with his hairdressing salon, which his mother was Madame Josephine, a very respected woman who passed away. But I was Madame Josephine, the entertainer. So there was a bit of a clash there, but it was only a clash.
There are many Malcolms around. There's a Prime Minister with the same name. And would I complain?
Certainly not.
No, of course not, because we do completely different things.
We do.
Joseph, so you've worked for a long time, I guess, in gentlemen's clubs as a manager and looking after all of those things and making them happen. But I remember first seeing this man in full sail, the fastest repartee comedian, funniest, not even time to consider what the last joke was because you were still laughing from the 1-2 times before sort of thing. We should just have a look at what Madame Josephine looks like. It's fairly important, because if you don't know Madam, this is Madam, who you affectionately call Madam.
I do.
Because it's not you.
I do.
You're looking gorgeous there. But you have really been recognised as an icon here in South Australia, because the State Theatre Company did a whole show about you. Just explain how that came about.
That show came about with Ross Ganff and myself meeting at a fashion show. He was directing a fashion show. I was there being the MC or compere, and we met. And he said, after talking, he said, there is a story here. And that took 4 years from the time we met to the time that the actual show came to be presented by the State Theatre Company.
And they couldn't find one person to be you, so they had 3.
They had 3 people.
Yes.
Yeah. They had Trevor, and they had Chris, and they had the lady that played Madam, which was Kayla. Yeah.
Amazing. But you were there in the theatre every night as well.
I was, yes.
And how were you integrated into the performance?
Well, no, I wasn't integrated as such. I was just there, and I would take a bow at the end of the night. So the audience would get to chat to me, ask me questions after the performance. There was an open bar which you could have a drink, and people stayed back. It was like a cabaret style of entertainment. Yeah.
But what's terrific about it? I mean, very few performers get a show in their living time about their life. And this is amazing that this was picked up.
Yes.
And it also is such an accolade to you as to what you've meant to the show business community here in South Australia. Do you feel that you can continue to play Madam for a long time?
Well, I don't know whether you were aware, I basically retired 2 years ago.
No.
And I thought, well, I tried to anyway.
Yes.
And I managed to sort of, keep away from performing every week. And I was enjoying it. And 4 weeks ago, I was asked to be back on stage as Madam in a nightclub in Hindley Street, and I've returned to the stage every Saturday night. So it's
And are you loving that again?
Yeah, I'm embracing it. It's getting makeup on every week now and getting back to the stage every Saturday night. It's fun. I love the audiences. The audiences here in South Australia, the minute Madam's announced, it makes you feel so wanted and so loved, So
Which is really important for a performer.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
But you didn't start being Madam. So can we go right back to the beginning?
Okay.
So you were from Melbourne originally, is
Correct,
that right?
yes.
But your family, your history comes from
Egypt. Yeah, I was born in Egypt myself. Dad was born in Cairo, and Mum is Italian, and raised in Egypt, went to school in Egypt, and then...
you could have been a pharaoh.
I could have quite easily, yes.
You could be
or
from
Cleopatra.
Madam should do a Cleopatra number, just bringing in my ancestors. But no, sorry, you'd have to fight Anne Wills for that.
Okay.
She's sure she was Cleopatra in a previous life. But so you were born there, and you came to Australia, obviously.
Yes, we did. We came to Australia in the early 60s, and I pursued to finish my schooling, and not having much English, and I had to virtually learn the English here in Australia. And
what did you speak? Arabic?
Italian, French.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Italian mainly at home,
right.
and Arabic, of course,
right.
which was the language that you had to learn.
That you would have grown up with, of course.
But I just don't know. I had show business in my blood.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you always feel like you were a performer?
I felt that. And where you can say, oh, who performed in your family? Your mother, your father, your auntie, Well, no one that I know that was a performer in my family.
Do you know, I feel that's how it works. I think the combination of the genes of parents throw up something that's quite unique.
Yeah.
Because I think every performer I know has nothing in the family, but the family look for, Uncle Fred played the violin back in the 1800s or something. It's like, no, I don't think there's a connection there at all. Yeah. But you were a dancer first as well.
Went to dance school. I was taught in Melbourne by Graham Dowd and Marilyn Dowd, who were the original dancers on the IMT, the Graham Kennedy show.
Graham Kennedy show, of course.
And they had a school in Melbourne, in Russell Street, and a school in Dandenong. So basically, besides performing with Graham Kennedy and on IMT, they ran their schools. I was very lucky to fall in their hands, because I had the ability and the yearning of wanting to be a dancer, but having such good coaches and good teachers, and I was sped through very quickly, and before I knew it, I was auditioning for shows.
And you worked with J.C. Williamson.
J.C. Williamson's, yes, I did with Betty Pounder, you know, and so I did musical comedies, you know, and then got into Guys and Dolls, and that was a good start because that was a great show, and it had a great lineup of artists in the show, and basically have never stopped working since then, and that was 72, 73.
But from dancing in those shows, you joined a group called La Coquettes?
Later, a few years later, yes, I did a big tour with the minstrel shows, the black and white minstrels.
Black and white minstrel shows that we can't even talk about anymore.
We cannot talk about it.
No.
and I did that for 13 months, Australia, New Zealand, and then...
did you black up?
Every night. Every night. It was just
amazing, isn't it?
It was honestly.
You never
which
quite
is
get
better,
the makeup off.
Sorry.
You never quite get the makeup off.
Never.
No.
Never. But
you can always pick people in the black and white minstrel show because after the show everybody's dressed and they've cleaned off their face, but in the hairline there's always that black makeup.
It was horrendous, and it got into your ears, and you know, it was just anyway. We did it for 13 months, laughed about it, and enjoyed it. You know. And
so joining the group, is that where Madam began?
No. Madam began about at the end of that season, and 6 months later. And I went to see a show. We finished in Brisbane, and I went to see a show on the Gold Coast, which was Les Coquettes, famous French producer. And the thing with Les Coquettes, we're all female impersonators, but everybody that auditioned had to be dancers.
Right.
You had to have some dancing experience, and so that's what sort of put us apart from lay girls. Lay girls were just female impersonators or transgender ladies. We were male and we had to be dancers. You could be transgender, but you still had to be a dancer. So that's Les Coquettes. And I was
wasn't
with them.
just walking around to music, in other words.
No.
Yes.
And miming a song. And I was with them for 8 years.
But how did Madam grow out of that?
She grew out of that I developed Madam out of that by doing the female impersonations, working as a sort of a soubrette, shall we say, the leading act in the show.
Lady,
and then I thought, okay, I'm leaving. I've done 8 years. I've got to do something that is going to progress me further.
Did you know you had the comedy timing in you before that, though?
No.
You weren't the life of the party? You didn't always come out with the boom jokes?
No, I don't do that.
No, you don't.
And at parties, I'm very much in the background.
Yes.
I don't like to...
you are.
Yeah. Parties, I'm very, very quiet, you know. Nevertheless, it must have been there, and I loved Graham Kennedy. He was my shall we say, the person that I looked up to, and his quickness and his wittiness that really inspired me.
That Graham inspired Madam.
Yes.
Joseph, just hold the fort there for a tick. We'll be back with Steve Soffell in just a moment, and again, Joseph, with a little bit more conversation about life in show business. Stephen and Joseph have rejoined us, and we were just talking while we were waiting during the commercial break. Steve, this is really a very special thing, this 25th anniversary, isn't it, for country arts?
It certainly is for us, Malcolm, and for regional South Australia. You know, in a way, we're a couple of months away from being able to actually announce the full program.
Oh, come on, there must be something you can announce now.
Look, I can say that we certainly...
Oh, yeah, what, did you say? Yes, that.
We'll certainly be working with a couple of state companies, including the State Theatre Company of South Australia, which we have a fabulous...
That'd be a surprise.
It'll actually be a news story, developed by a regional writer from Port Pirie. So
brilliant.
We're really looking forward to that. But there may be a spot, there may not be. I'm not sure.
That's why he's the CEO. Wasn't that beautifully diplomatic? The thing is, and good luck with that though. So, are there special shows going into all of the venues? Or is it just a blanket sort of series of productions moving around and visual art?
This will be very special because we won't be taking the same show to every art centre. What we'll be doing is actually taking a company that will stay in residence for up to a week. So it'll be much more than just a performance. It will be full engagement with the community.
And that means that it won't just be a performance, because it could be a visual arts, it could be a workshop, it could be anything.
That's right. It could be circus. It could be.
Have you spilled the beans in any small way, shape, or form?
Maybe just a bit. But we'll see. We'll see.
Well, good luck with that, and keep us posted. Maybe before the end of this year we can do another little chat and spill the beans completely.
Would love to.
That would be fun. And Joseph, we never got a chance to see you and Madam together. Just have a look. This was you for the promotion of your story. The show was called
Madam, the story of Joseph Farrugia.
But there you are together. Look, two completely different people. Amazing. How do you feel when you look at yourself like that?
Well,
is it like looking at another soul?
Correct. Yes. You look at Madam as a different person. You know, I look at Madam as a product of Joseph, but I produce that character. It's a character.
But it's a complete character with her own backstory and so on.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what's so interesting about it all. Look, you can be seen virtually every week here in South Australia.
Yes. In Hindley Street at Madam Josephine's.
Yes. And mostly to female audiences, because that's what the shows are.
Yeah, we do female. You know, we cater for the functions. You know, for celebrations, lady celebrations. Yes.
And we have to go. We hope that you can keep watching us on OurTime on any of the platforms right here. And until next time, keep yourself nice till then.